Well, we talk an awful lot on this show about freedom of speech and freedom of thought, and no place worse on this planet than in British and American universities. Well, the University of Bristol has been accused of failing to protect one of its own professors who was falsely accused of Islamophobia. Free speech and academic groups have asked for the Office for Students to examine alleged government and management failings that were said to have put Professor Steven Greer at risk. He was hounded out of his job for, well, doing nothing wrong. Well, I'm delighted to say that Professor Steven Greer joins us now. He's Emeritus Professor at the University of Bristol, although no longer working there as a professor of human rights. Very good morning to you, Steven.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. So what actually happened to you? You were giving a class, you were giving a talk in a module entitled Islam, China and the Far East. What was it that you did that apparently caused such outrage?
Nothing, basically. I mean, I had been teaching this module on a unit entitled Human Rights and Law, Politics and Society for nearly 15 years without incident, and the content of it hadn't really changed except being updated.
Yeah.
And in fact, there has been quite a marked increase in literature on these themes: Islam, human rights, China and human rights. So apart from adding the new literature, nothing really had changed. And basically, some anonymous students who were fronted by the president of the University of Bristol Islamic Society, a medical student who hadn't attended the course at all.
So he hadn't actually been there?
No. He claimed that the course material, not what I'd said in the class, well, there were certain things he did claim I'd said in the class which were false, but the course material was Islamophobic.
Because as part of this, it raised the Islamist attacks in Paris in 2015, the Charlie Hebdo attack. I would have thought a very obvious topic to cover in such a debate. And you were accused of mocking, vilifying Islam.
Well, there were two separate things about that. One is I had said that the Charlie Hebdo attacks could be seen as an example of the capital punishment for blasphemy.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. Carried out by freelancers and mobs, as it happens around the world, particularly in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And I could have used examples of the Ayatollah Khomeini's fatwa against Salman Rushdie.
Yep.
That was a lot less topical at the time. And there are several states in the Islamic world in which capital punishment for blasphemy is enshrined in their criminal codes. So there's no issue. There's no real issue.
It's a perfectly reasonable and justifiable point to make. The fascinating thing here is that the student who complained wasn't in the class, hadn't been at the class, complained 6 months later, and apparently there's a 3-month limit on complaints. And it was taken very seriously. You were investigated for 5 months?
Yep. It was a very thorough investigation.
And what was the pressure like on you for that? Because did you feel that you were getting support from colleagues or fellow students, or were you allowed to speak to them about it?
No.
Did you face the sort of problems maybe like Kathleen Stock at Sussex University faced for simply stating, gender, biological fact on trans and women's issues, that she underwent a horrible campaign of harassment, rape threats, death threats, you name it. Did you get anything like this?
Well, I'm glad that my case is now being compared to hers, because I think it is very similar. Luckily for me, this was during COVID, so I felt reasonably protected.
Yeah.
There was a suspicious incident outside my home on occasion when Al Jazeera reported the controversy, and the university prohibited me from giving my side of the story. Yeah. So they had an open goal, basically.
So the lies about what you'd said, and they were lies. They were lies. Let's call them what they were. So it took 5 months.
Yes.
You were exonerated.
Yes.
But from what I can understand, the university was still sort of, sort of gave a little bit of succor to the student sensitivities.
Well, nothing more than that. The university, in spite of my exoneration, which was in July 2021, the university took the module Human Rights and Islam, China and the Far East off the syllabus.
So they won.
Yeah. I mean, so the students got what they wanted in spite of the fact that I had been exonerated. So the university was trying to sit on the fence. And the university also said that although I'd been exonerated, they recognised the students.
Oh, goodness, sorry, that frightened the life out of me. Turn that phone off. We've only got a couple of more minutes left, Stephen. Let's get you back on.
The university said they recognised the students' concerns, and they had taken the module off the...
Yeah, I mean, again, so this is the thing. So they win, even though instead of saying this was an outrageous allegation, I'm sure that was an allegation that could have been thrown out within a week anyway. And these things take months. A lot of people have said you've gone through these sort of processes for whatever political views or views of any kind, that it's the process that is the punishment. What do you want to happen now? Because look, you resigned. You've left the university. You don't want anything to do with them. Although you still maintain that title for life, Emeritus Professor. What do you want to happen now?
The Office for Students, which is the regulator, has got to hold the University of Bristol to account.
Yep.
In the same way they held the University of Sussex to account with respect to the Kathleen scandal.
And they were fined a huge sum, weren't they? £585,000.
Yes. The same thing has got to happen to the University of Bristol, in my estimation.
I think people need to be sat. My issue with this, I'm not in favour of the cancellation culture and things like that. But at the end of the day, when people do this and they effectively hound people who've done nothing wrong out of their jobs, there needs to be a punishment, because they know that the punishment will come from those who are trying to hound you out. But there's no punishment on the other side, and they just, maybe there's a fine that's paid, but they don't pay the fine. They don't lose their house.
Exactly.
What do they care?
Well, I'm not going to dictate or speculate what the sanction should be, but I think it should be effective, and it should be severe, and it should. The most important thing is it should send a signal to the academic community that this kind of behaviour will not be tolerated again, and that legitimate and lawful criticism of Islam, which is all I ever did, has got to be respected and it's got to be upheld.
I mean, it's just so basic. If only we had a Prime Minister who also agreed, that would probably help. Professor Steven Greer, I hope you'll come back on the show. We keep up with this development. Emeritus Professor at the University of Bristol, thank you so much. Thank you for standing up for freedom of speech. Tom Slater, you write about this stuff on Spiked Online an awful lot as well. This is really basic, fundamental stuff. This is like Soviet Union, North Korea stuff.
No, absolutely. I mean, through Professor Greer's story or Professor Kathleen Stock's story, you just see that the whole point of university has kind of changed when no one was watching. Like, they have just become...
want to hear alternative points of view.
They have just become like woke madrasas, to play on his personal experience there. It's whether that's people realise that's where they're going, that's just every single time they give in to any student, any academic, any campaign group who claim that they're affronted or upset by
and
something.
Also the idea that, well, on the one hand, well, on the other, but someone was offended. I don't care. When a person says to me, I'm offended by what you say or think, and what do you... And this is relevant to me, why?
And that's the other thing, even among students, without anyone really noticing, they have just completely taken on board this idea that their offence matters so much more than learning, than the university being able to run, people being able to have their jobs at the university. It's it's a real cultural change that's
we all saw oldies like me that, when they come out of university, they'll get a reality check at work. No, they've infected every workplace with it now. And I mean every workplace. If you manage to keep out of your workplace and you're a boss, please tell me how you do it. I'd love to give some people I know a tip.